This first panel will be moderated by, and I will be happy to welcome to the stage the moderated Kevin Brown. So please, I would like just to ask you to give him some claps. Kevin, thank you so much. Thank you. And Mr. Brown is the Office Director of USAID BHA Office Technical Program Quality in Washington, D.C. This is Mr. Kevin. Thank you so much. Thank you. And next, I welcome Catherine Lane. Catherine. Okay, please welcome. And Mrs. Lane is the Chief of Party of Sukabe Django II here in Senegal with Counterpart International, right? Okay. Thank you so much, Mrs. Lane. And then next, I welcome Ayuba Irmia. Ayuba Irmia. Thank you. Mrs. Irmia is the Chief of Operation for the Kafamia Rescue Mission in Nigeria. Correct? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And finally, I'm pleased to welcome Kofi Kwaku. Kofi? Thank you so much. Thank you, Kofi. And Mr. Kwaku is the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO. Correct, Kofi? Yes. Yeah, Kwaku. Representative at interim for Nigeria and ECOWAS, and the interim head of emergency and resilience team for the FAO sub-regional office, West Africa and the Sahel. So please give a welcome, a warm welcome to our four panelists, and we will just be happy to learn from you.
So we'll start with the panelists and turn to Ayuba with our first question. So good morning, Ayuba. Glad to have you here.
Good morning, Kevin.
As the Chief of Operations with COFEMIA, in what ways have you had to adapt programming to rapidly shifting conflict dynamics and insecurity?
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Kelvin. Good morning once again. My name is Ayuba Irumia, and I work for Kafamia Rescue Mission as the Chief of Operation. Kafamia Rescue Mission is a national non-governmental organization that is based in Nigeria. So as an organization, we've worked in so many diverse ways in order to create conflict in terms of insecurity for HDP coherence, in the sense that it has helped us as an organization to have a flexible program design. As an organization, we've had a flexible program design with the management team, where we shift a certain program to an area that is faced with insecurity or any natural emergency disaster that has happened. So because we have that flexibility as a national organization, it makes our own work easy to shift from one emergency to another to respond to the pressing emergency needs. We've also established community-led emergency response mechanisms, where we work with local community-based stakeholders to develop emergency response mechanisms. These communities that we usually work with, they have their own traditional ways of detecting emergencies. So coupled with the technological aspect and the traditional means where they have been predicting hazard, we were able to train them to predict future occurrence, so that as soon as emergencies occur, we switch into action to support with the aid of these community-led structures that has been trained at community level. So these stakeholders comprise of different age groups and different support groups in the community, including community leaders, religious leaders, youth and women groups, and even community-based associations and other CBOs that are working in the same community where we also operate. Yeah, we also include remote programming in the sense that these stakeholders that we've trained, we are able to support them remotely with our programming, even in the course of some shocks that occur as a result of flooding. some few months back, where access road has been cut off to those communities. But because we have these structures that are in these communities, we are able to provide the remote support services to them. And these remote services is being managed by our program team, and our activities are being implemented at the community level by the community stakeholders or community-based volunteers, which we have built their capacity and also trained them to respond in case we are not able to have access to this community, even though we are also locals. But there are some communities that are absolutely new to us, and because we are not familiar with the terrain, we will not be able to access such communities. So these community-based actors that we've trained were able to respond to the emergency needs while we provide remote support to them. Also, in terms of the security of our personnel, we're able to liaise with other security stakeholders to provide support to them, where in terms of insecurity, before we go to a field, we receive a security briefing or security support even from other INGOs that operate in the same region, where our staff also undergo trainings on security. So their safety is also prioritized, as well as the safety of the beneficiaries, which we usually provide support to them. So this security training is being provided to a designated staff member who serves as the security focal person for the organization, and he is the one that cascades the training down to other downlines and other community stakeholders and beneficiaries which we support. So one other thing that we also do is we also implement the do no harm approach, where we involve the stakeholders in our program design right from inception to project closure, because we involve them so as our activities and our program will not bring harm to our beneficiaries and the community we serve. So if we involve all the stakeholders in the different communities where we operate in our program, right from the design stage through the implementation and subsequent project closure, where we have intervals of meetings with them to collect feedback from these stakeholders, using the different feedback mechanisms that we have, which can either be through our toll-free line and also focus group discussion or key informant interview, where we sit down one-on-one with the stakeholders and beneficiaries to collect their feedback, which these feedbacks will be documented and revert back to them with the outcome. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you for that. Very, very good, important highlights, particularly when you talk about flexibility and adaptability and the inclusiveness of working with stakeholders. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. So we will slow down. Thank you. So the next question is, I'm going to turn to you, Kofi. What is the link between the rise in conflicts over access to natural resources and food/nutrition insecurity in the Sahel? And how is FAO responding to these new challenges?
Thank you very much, Kevin, for your questions. Before starting, that's good. That's not well. I really want to thank USAID and EDIL for this invitation, for inviting FAO to be part of this panel, and I really also want to thank all of you, because I know that you are all working, myself being inside, you are all working in a very, very complex area that is not easy to manage. So I want that all of you, you clap your hand for this amazing job that you are doing in the ground for these complex situations. Kevin allowed me to build my narrative around 3 points. I know that all of you, you know the global situation, but allowed me to give a small global context to really show what is this complex environment that you are working. The second point is, I call it FAO how we work on this environment in Sahel and coastal West Africa. And I want to use also this opportunity to give some key points, some key advocacy notes, because I know that there are several persons coming from DC and all, so they can use this advocacy notes in terms of advocacy. Kevin, today, Sahel country, and I can say we are in trouble. Frankly speaking, we are in trouble. Today in West Africa, I work on this region more than 50. I'm original from this region, but I work in this region, this Sahel country, more than 15 years. When I start working in 2014, we talk about 8 million persons under food insecure. Today, we are talking about 52 million persons in food insecure. But what we forget, we don't talk about the 131 million persons under pressure that can every day feel on the top of 52 million. So if today we are talking about HDP Nexus, my first advocacy point is please don't do your programming with the 52 million persons, but do your programming with 183 million of persons under food insecure, because all these persons need to be assisted by the humanitarian, the development, and the peace. So that is the first advocacy point that I want to bring in this meeting. We all know the root causes of this, why we have 183 million persons. Unfortunately, the first one is the conflict. The second one is climate change. We have several. And the third one is economic shock. But for constraint of time, let me stop on the two. Today, because of conflict, we have 13.1 million of IDPs in Lac Chad Basin running, in Liptako Gourmand running, and unfortunately, 80% to 90% are all farmers, herders, or fishermen. So I'm not surprised that we have a number of persons in food insecurity in our region, because they don't work. They don't have access to land. They cannot farm. So I'm not surprised at all. Let's take an example, and we just discussed. In 2015, myself, I was in Gingimi, in Niger. I was in Gao, just after Kona attack. And I want to use the opportunity to greet my friend for Adezen and DRC that I opened the mission in Mali, Burkina, Niger, and Nigeria between 2013 and 2015. This year, I went back again to the same place. I found the same agriculture person, the same person, and asked him, during the 9 years, what did you do? He looked at me, he said, Kofi, nothing. That means that all of us in this room, we worked 9 years without salary, without being able to send our children to school, without taking care of all our persons that they are there. That is the reality that we are facing the ground. We are dealing with protracted crises that working in silo and humanitarian development peace cannot work. We need to have a three approach at the same time, and later on I'll come in. That is concerning the conflict. Now let's come to the climate shock. And now we are facing the situation. I come from Nigeria. This year, only in Nigeria, because of the flood, we lost 850,000 metric tons of food. That means that we lost a food that can feed 8.5 million persons during 6 months. How we have to cover that now? That's why, Kevin, I told you, you are in trouble. Frankly speaking, we are in trouble. So that is an example. We talk about the flood, but I want to quote Ma from Eunice. Today, we have a conflict under the water resource between animal and human being. But tomorrow, we'll have a conflict between the human and of water. That is the situation. So what FAO we are doing on this, I know that we say FAO, don't worry. We are trying to do our best to boost the productions in the region. So we are building our intervention into 4 pillars regarding the context that we have. The first one is the data into food security analysis and conflict. Because we need to give the information for better planning, for better intervention. All these figures that I give here, through the cadre harmonisé that we are working, through the IPC that we are working together with FuseNet and all. So please support this one, because you need to do your programming. If you don't have information, you don't have data to do, you can better plan, you cannot better advocate. So we are working, that is the first pillar that we are working on it. The second pillar is anticipatory action. I want to do 1 or 2 very quick examples, and sorry, I know that I have only 5 minutes, but I'll go very quick. Anticipatory action. We all know all the informations. You know, it's not like before when my mother wake up in the morning, have to look at the sky to say, maybe it's rain today. Not. But today, with all the information and all the technology, we can know even if for next year, if it will rain or not. We can anticipate. For that is okay. But now, we need to anticipate on the displacement related to the conflict. We have now a project in Burkina Faso regarding the conflict analysis that my dad and my brother Usubi are doing. We can anticipate on the host communities, because the host communities, they are the first one who receive the person that are running. So when you know that there are some conflict in some area, you start developing your programming in some area that you are sure that when people will run, they'll be able to help them first. Now we are thinking and discussing with BHA in Nigeria to work on anticipatory action related to the returning. Because when the situation becomes calm, we need to invest in the place that of origin before people are going back. So that is the second pillar in intervention. Third pillar of intervention is how to boost the production, how to develop the livelihood. And I want to use this platform to say, please don't do only agriculture project. Don't do only income generating agriculture. Please push the peace in all your project that you are developing. And that is very important. I want to take an example. You have a project, maybe later on I'll talk about it, 1 million of CT. That is only to harvest water. But this project comes from water finished by the peace. And the last pillar, the third pillar is how to boost the productions. And then the last pillar is coordination. We don't coordinate enough. We do together the context analysis, but when you arrive to implement the project, everybody runs his corner and then do his small project here, small project here, small project here. We cannot succeed with that, because in West Africa, we need to work on skill. Last point is my key train of advocacy. Number one, the second one, okay. Number one, I'm sure that the HDP nexus is one of the key approach, because what we are saying is the humanitarian don't talk too much to the development. The peace is the whole fan of the house. So we need to bring the peace, and then we need all the actors to talk together. So let's promote this HDP nexus approach. Let's promote it. It's difficult. We develop a lot of strategy, but we need to implement it. Number two, let's go for flexible and multi-annual funding. Because you can start a project in production, but you finish the same project with the peace. You can start a project with development, but after this project become development project. And the last one, please don't forget the government that we are working with them. We know we can talk all over, but they are the ones that work on the systematic manner. We need to support them. I know that it's not difficult. It's not easy to work with them, but we need to support them. So this is my 3 advocate key points that I want to bring, and thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Yes, give him a round of applause. It was great information. I do want to take a quick pause, an IT check, to make sure that AHA is working. Great. So as we're having this conversation, again, please feel free to submit questions to the panelists. And also want to make sure to the panelists, if we could slow down a bit so the interpreters can catch all the great information that you're sharing, and making sure that everybody can hear. So with that, we'll move to the next question, over to you, Catherine. And I'm really curious about learning, how do you navigate the complexities of working in locations where government oversight is dispersed, contested, or non-existent?
Great. Thank you, Kevin, for the question. It is, of course, a challenge to work in zones without government partnership, as they play a central role in development work, humanitarian work, and ultimately in peace building. They need to be leaders in all those domains in many cases. In Niger, where we have a project on governance and resilience called Coherence, we do a lot of support to both citizens and government actors, even when those government actors are dispersed or contested. And very importantly, building the links between citizens and local decision makers. A shout out to our two local partners, Garkua and Demiyu, who are in the audience. They are doing a lot of the work at the ground, and they do great work. As Ayuba and Kofi have both mentioned, it is really important to work through local structures and work with local processes, and that should be done everywhere. But in a conflict zone, that's especially important. When, given the question is when government is not playing its essential role. Programming, Kofi mentioned this, programming has to be flexible and be able to react to constantly changing environments. So one of the first things we do at the community level is build trust and establish relationships. So you can work with community leaders, traditional leaders, religious leaders, civil society leaders. All of these are actors that are key in meeting immediate needs, but they're also key actors in longer term development processes. They're the ones that they know the conflict, they know how things work, they understand the fault lines, they understand, they're sensitive to the decisions that can be made and the impact that'll have on the people on the zone. So for example, we work with building capacity of youth to manage conflict with a small c, or build peace with a small p. In Niger, there is the larger scale conflict that's a matter of other actors. We also work with women to make sure their voices are heard in local decision making. When you bring people together at a table for multi-stakeholder dialogues, then that's when you make sure that it's inclusive, you make sure that everyone's being heard. Local leaders and community members are the one who identify the issues, be they conflict resolution between two subgroups. People talk about herders, farmers, communities can be in conflict. There are a variety, conflict comes in all varieties, unfortunately. But community members might identify conflict, they might identify access to schooling, they might identify access to water, but they're the ones that are saying, these are our needs, this is what we need addressed, either immediately because there's an acute crisis, or in the longer term because they're addressing development needs. So promoting, another thing the project does is promote transparency in local decision making. So when you have inclusive dialogue and you have everyone at the table, that ensures the right things are getting done. It ensures buy-in from people that can either make it work or behind the scenes block things from working. So it's really important to have inclusive structures and processes to make sure that everybody is being heard. And these are important processes for humanitarian activities, but also longer term development activities. And of course, peace building is something that can be done in transversal manner in either form of programming. We found that one of the keys to successful programming is that when people see tangibly their needs and priorities being met, they're much more likely to then make choices to participate and change their behaviors around meeting community needs. Because ultimately, that's what we want. We don't want somebody to be there for 9 years and then you come back later and nothing's changed. You want them to be able to make change happen. Working in complex zones requires abundant transparency and communication, in addition to addressing the key tenets of neutrality, impartiality, and independence when you're doing humanitarian-focused activities. Those, you have to think about it for a second. When we talk about the HDP nexus, there's lots of things that you can take from one stream and apply it in another. In a place like Tilbury in Niger, this is really key. So no matter what level of government functioning there is in a country, they're always present to a certain extent, more or less. And Jagorancy really works to build capacity of these government officials at local, regional, and national levels to address short-term issues around security or food aid, while also addressing long-term activities built around service provision, be they security, be they water, be they schooling, for example. Just to mention, just to note, capacity building, it's one of those words that everybody throws around, but it goes way beyond just training. It includes practical application and coaching or accompagnement. I love that word in French. Going with the project stakeholders. We also build the links. The project works to build links between the different actors, both citizens and government. And that's a key that can't be overlooked. You can build capacity, you can put in place processes, you can even provide inputs, but you have to have systems, you have to have linkages between the different actors. Another word for that in HDP is the collaboration and the coordination, so internally and externally. Working with and through people living in the affected communities to carry out their activities, to identify their needs, is really key. Citizen oversight and transparency and decision-making around service provision, and resource distribution should be kind of the basics of any activity that's done in a country like Niger. The project works in places where government is not functioning as it could, but it's also working in zones, in conflict areas, where government is functioning. And one of the things, for example, the project has done is worked with government and citizens to increase the tax base in municipalities. So it's important to remember that working in complex zones or working in conflict zones, the level of dysfunction or functioning can be very different, and project activities have to address that in a diverse way using diverse approaches. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Yes, give a round of applause for that. Great response. And as you guys are talking, I'm hearing common themes come out, right, with HDP, looking at coordination and collaboration, communication, and being creative, and really working together across those three areas of HDP. Moving into the next question, and unfortunately we're running short on time, so I'm gonna ask this of all of you, but ask that your responses are a bit shorter. The next question is, what community-based approaches have you used in conflict settings that address urgent humanitarian needs while working toward long-term resilience and stability? So Ayuba, I'll start with you on that one.
Okay, thank you, Calvin. For us as an organization, we've used inclusive dialogue platforms where we bring different stakeholders together to establish community dialogue platforms. It comprises of the different religious group leaders, the community stakeholders, community leaders, youth group and women group, including pastoralists, to create a dialogue platform where we dialogue and find out the lasting solution to the root causes of conflict in the region where we operate. And as a strategy, we also build the capacity of the stakeholders so as to continue with this dialogue, even if our organization is no longer in those communities. But because we have the capacity of these stakeholders developed, they were able to continue with these dialogue platforms that we've already established at community levels. Thank you.
Catherine, over to you.
So as part of the Niger project, which is focused mainly on development results, there's also, we have also supported food aid distribution. And that's really thanks to USAID project design, which includes the Complex Crisis Fund, the CCF. It's a flexible mechanism to address crises in a project that's doing development work. So that's the marriage right there of the H and the D of HDP. It's baked into the design, and that's pretty crucial. I think as we saw in some breakout discussions, we've talked about sequencing and layering so that these different types of activities fit together seamlessly. Because the marriage between humanitarian assistance and develop is not going to magically happen without premeditated design and monitoring so that we can adapt to a changing situation. Once again, being transparent and participatory is key because when you're identifying beneficiaries, you really want to make sure that you are using a conflict-sensitive approach. Ayuba talked about do no harm. Those are similar things. When you're bringing resources to a community, you really got to make sure that it's done in an equitable, inclusive, and transparent manner. If not, you risk to make the conflict worse. The challenge around these projects that do all three things is that processes take time. Participatory processes especially, they take time. And everybody wants results yesterday. So it's really difficult to balance the need for building sustainable outcomes and responding rapidly. Just as an example, the project worked to build capacity at the national level to manage crises. It worked at the regional level, which acts as an intermediary between getting information from the community level to national level decision makers, while it also, at the community level, where the food aid was distributed, it worked to put in place structures that manage aid, ensure that beneficiaries are selected based on community-approved criteria in a highly transparent manner. So I'll cut it off right there.
No
Thanks.
problem. Thank you. Thank you. Kofi, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I really trust on community-based approach in terms of conflict resolutions. Today, a part of the conflict between the armed group and the, I can say, jihadists or whatever, non-state actors group, we have four types. The typology of the conflict is four. Number one is the one that is between farmers and herders. Number two is the conflict around the water. Number three is the conflict around access of land. And the last one is the intercommunal conflict related due to the marginalized peoples that they are suffering, so sometimes, they have a conflict. So this is a three type of conflict that we are dealing mainly in Sahel. And the communities-based approach to resolve of the conflict show that is work. I want to take an example. In 2019, we have Djibo blocus. All of you already know that. We cannot access to Djibo. It's completely blocked. But you use the communities to negotiate, to discuss, to be able to bring our first assistance in Djibo. That is 2019. The same things that we have intercommunal. I have my friend here from Gao at the beginning in 2013 between Gossi, Iran Gossi, Ntilit, all this area. I don't want to name the different ethnic group that they are fighting among themselves. But you use the community-based approach. But unfortunately, all the natural community-based approach that we set up in the long term, all of them are destroyed now because of all these conflicts. So we need to rebuild all of them, to try to bring the quiet diplomacy. That is number 1 and 2C. I want to give you some concrete example of FAO, what we are doing. We have some approach. I think it was, they call it VSLA. That is, we have several names. I think VSLA was Save the Children, who developed that a long time ago. In FAO, we call it Cause the Resilience with the Farmer Field School that we bring it. we bring it again. But I want to finish with this one. In my tribe, usually they say, la nuit porte conseil. When the men are discussing and then they don't find the solution, and then we say, let's go sleep, and then tomorrow morning, we'll give the final decision. But do you know what that means? When all of them go to their room, they ask to their wife, we have this problem, how we are to find. And then they have the advice of their wife. And the morning they come, you have to do that, do that, do that. But it all happens in the night. So please, I believe that if you want the peace in our region, develop the women-based approach. Fund the women. Give them fund, human empowerment. Develop that. Boost them. If you do that, I'm sure that will bring peace in the region. Because we are saying that it's a conflict who bring food insecurity. But you know what? It's the food insecurity who bring the conflict. I went in the north of Togo, Sahel region. I arrived in one village. No young. I asked them, but what is the young? No, we don't know. But you know where they are? Immigration, going for illegal mining, or they join the armed group. So if you create employment, you succeed to create employment, we'll have peace in the region. But please invest in the women, invest, because they will save us, as a man, will save us, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Very true, very true. So thank you for all these insights, and we have a few questions from the audience, so I'm going to turn to those. The first question for Catherine and Ayuba, can you address whether there is a transfer of risk in insecure areas when we give local partners management of projects when we can't go to those areas? So I'll read it again. Can you address whether there is a transfer of risks in insecure areas when we give local partners management of projects when we can't go to those areas?
Yes, yes. But you've got to mitigate for that. You've got to plan for how to keep people safe, make sure there's communication about what's going on at the ground, making sure that there are triggers for getting people out of there if necessary, understanding how to, they understand how to talk about the issues without engendering an immediate negative their safety. That's why they're still there and they're surviving, living in the community. So yes, there is, but the project has an ethic and moral responsibility to try and build as much as a safety net, a security net around those actors when they do their work. Ayuba.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. To respond to this, Kevin, maybe I will say in this way. Transfer of risks, yes, it happens because as local actor, what we usually see is maybe some INGOs or UN, they might not be able to reach out to certain communities, then they will not look for a local partner to transfer these risks to them because they are locals. These local actors, because they are from those communities, they doesn't care about insurance or other safety precautions, even though as locals we also consider our security first, but we tag some of the partnership as transfer of risks to the local actors because they are from those communities, they understand the culture and the dynamics of those communities, and they are always together with these people. So the risk to them is minimal, while at the other side is high. So this can actually be termed as a transfer of risk.
Thank you for that. For the next question from the audience, I'll turn to you, Kofi. How do you successfully coordinate stakeholders who have different objectives within the same conflict zone?
There are two types of coordination that we are bringing. There are the coordination for advocacy level and the coordination for field level to really operate in the ground. And I already mentioned that today regarding to the scale of the need that is in the ground, we need all of us to work hand in hand. I cannot, as FAO, go alone without bringing other partners to coordinate at the field level in terms of coordination, in terms of interventions, but in coordination also to reach the people in need. I want to take an example. In 2014, with Adezen, who is here, I asked about CICE. We are able to go to set up the two camps, Mentao and Godebo. And then I arrived in Dori. I realized that I was Danish Refugee Council. I cannot access to the area, so we need to coordinate. But I arrived, I found Adezen. They are already well established in Dori. Isn't it? Yes. You know what I did? I took Adezen. I went to one of the partners that I will not name here, and I asked the partner to fund the local NGOs, and the local NGO will fund the international NGOs to work with that. And we succeeded. And we bring all the partners, we set up through the clusters, and it's the national NGOs who are managing all of us because they better know the situation on the ground. And today I'm happy that they are superstar in Dori and all, even if now they are in Kaya and all, they are working. So yes, of course, we need to coordinate very strongly, but let the local actors coordinate us because they know better what's happening in the field.
Thank you for that. We have another question from the audience, and I'm just open it to any one of you. What do you do when, because of displacement, community leaders have moved? What do you do when, because of displacement, community leaders have moved? So open to any one of you. Catherine?
Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem in humanitarian work, in development work, in peace building work. You build capacity, you have structures, and then it disappears because the people move. That's where working, layering and sequencing things, working with a multitude of actors, making sure that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, trying to, a multi-stakeholder dialogue, for example, brings many different stakeholders from different subgroups within a community, so that if one of them leaves or two of them leave, at least there's some possibility that the group could pick up and keep moving forward with the absence, or they can find somebody else to take the place, or at least take on some of the tasks of the person who left. It's an ever challenging issue. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe to add to what Katrina has just said, aside from building the capacity of the local actors, it's also good that we always work together with the government, because even if the partners are not there, the government are always there. So even at the local level, it is actually good for us to involve the government as well as the community-based stakeholders, so that once the partner is not there, the government will forever be there. So the government can actually take over to support the communities.
Thank you. Kofi?
No, I call it strategy des trois bananes. In all the entire country that we have a conflict in Africa, in Asia, and all, we are three types. I call it trois bananes. We have the displaced area that people are running the war. We have the place that we have people are receiving all the people that they are running. And then we have the peace area, mainly that we have the government. When you see a community leader leaving one area, that means that mainly this area become hard to reach area. Because the community leaders are usually the last that they are leaving. I can see an example. Today we have all the community leaders sitting in Kaya. We have all the community leaders in, at that time in Mondoro, Gossi area, Veasini or Mopti or in Bamako. So when you arrive, now you are using today we talk about localization, but I have my head on localization because we cannot work on localization without build the capacity and giving enough resources to the local organization to better perform and work in the quality manner. So if you don't give enough resources to the local organization to do a very good quality in the field, please don't call it localization. Please use another word. So when you arrive at this stage, what we can use these local communities is to advocate to the government to allow you to have access to this area. Because it's very difficult to arrive to reach on this area. We have today the car in Burkina Faso. We can use them, for example, to advocate for you to do a cash transfer because the government don't want you. So we can use it another way. Because now we have to work remotely, it's very difficult to arrive there. So it's like that we can use them. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have another very interesting question that I'll again pose to all three of you. Can you comment on how you stay impartial in supporting communities when you know some of the members are party to the conflict? So again, can you comment on how you stay impartial in supporting communities when you know some members are party to the conflict?
As a project, I think it really starts with making sure that the project team is saturated with the idea of impartiality and neutrality. And that's something, as an organization, you can really work on making sure that the actors that are directly under your supervision, you can really pound that home. And not just give a training and tell them they have to do that, but really work on helping them to remain neutral regardless of their personal opinion or regardless of situation in front of them. I mean, I think humanitarian actors, they've learned to deal with situations where, yes, it's based on, they're independent actors, it's based on need. If that person is suffering and in need, it doesn't matter if they're a rebel, a jihadist, or a local community member, the person suffering and needs assistance. In the ideal world, those are easy decisions, but we know in reality they're not. So I think it's a lot of support to project actors. It's a lot of adaptive management. Situations happen. Project implementers, you've got to bring them back and say, hey, what happened? How did that feel? What did you do? Did it work? How would you do it differently next time? So constantly adapting and learning from situations as they arise, because each conflict is very, very unique, and the drivers and the actors and who's involved and why, yeah, it's extremely complex. So making sure that we are very clear on how, as a project, we can do that, I think is one of the best approaches. Ayuba.
Kofi, Ayuba, any thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Just to add to what you just said, make it clear to all the stakeholders involved right from the inception is actually key, because as a humanitarian actor, abiding by the humanitarian principle of being independent as an organization and being neutral to serve all the affected population, I think it will go a long way if at the beginning of the project all the stakeholders are made known of our neutrality is actually a way to go.
Kevin is a very, I don't know if I have to give this example. I work in the country that I arrive, and then we have to do a distribution of 1,200,000 food in the camp. And after some time, I realized that we cannot have 1,200,000 people in this camp. So I call the community leaders. I say, okay, I know that there's something wrong. So I give you 3 months, but after 3 months, I will cut the distributions to reduce to 900,000, so we can be sure. Okay, at the end, I was PNG in this country. They kicked me out. But if we set up, and I like your title, you are program quality and something, I like that. We need to set up a very strong meal team, M&A team, to set up a strong criteria and beneficiary identification, to set up a very clean monitoring and evaluations, to do the feedback mechanisms to be sure that we have the feedback mechanisms. Because we are talking about the beneficiaries, but I did in 2015 a survey among my own staff. The confidence between my own staff was 30%. They are going in the same car, in the field, to do beneficiary identification, but they don't trust themselves because of all these conflicts that we are having there. So if we are doing identification of the beneficiary because we have the head who send on this community, they forget the other community, or they want to give the assistance to their family because they have another family, all will have a huge impact of our program. That will have a huge impact on our trust, and that will. So we need to set up a strong monitoring and evaluation and feedback mechanism. If you have that, I can say that we don't have zero risk, but at least we can reduce the risk. So after the beneficiary identification, you have your meal team who can call or can go there, do some survey, so can be sure that at least 90% or 95% of our beneficiaries. Now we have some other organization, WFP use the scope, we have fingerprint, we are using now our tool that we call IDEAL. By the way, IDEAL, IDEA. Yes, I'm making the link between IDEA and IDEAL. So I think we don't have zero risk, but we can reduce it with a strong monitoring evaluation team and internal control.
Thank you for that. We can give him a round of applause for that too. So this has been a very enlightening conversation, and I hope you guys have learned a lot throughout this discussion. Unfortunately, AHA is still having some technical difficulties, but we do ask that you reflect on the initial question, which is HDP coherence possible when conflict is a constant threat in reality? And as we've learned from the 3 panelists today, it is very possible. And so continue to think about that, and as you go throughout the day and throughout the rest of the week and having your other sessions and other conversations. But with that, we'll close with the panelists for you to answer the question. Is HDP, we have something. Okay, well, that's great. It worked. So I don't know if this was from the initial question or if this is from now. Initially, it said that it's now? Okay, perfect. So as we see, a lot of you selected yes, that HDP coherence is possible when conflict is a constant threat in reality. So with that, I'll turn to the panelists to answer the question. Catherine, your thoughts?
I wouldn't be up here on the panel if I didn't think yes. So yes, it is possible, but it has to be designed that way. It's really got to start from the very, very beginning, and not as an add-on or not as an adaptation later on, if it's really going to be impactful. I think one of the biggest challenges is not to stovepipe the H, the D, and the P. Humanitarian actors are over here doing their thing, development activators are over here doing their thing, and the peace builders are over there doing their thing. And coordinating, I think Kofi, your answer was very good. Advocacy level coordination is one thing. Operational level coordination is another. And so if we're going to design development programming that delivers peace-building results and addresses crises, I think that part of that key is getting out of our positions of safety and this is the way we do things, this is the way we count things, this is the way we say success is reached. We've got to come up with new paradigms there was a no there and there were a bunch of maybes. But we've got to come up with some new paradigms to get people to fund, implement, monitor, and assess, looking at all three aspects. I think we've seen in the breakout rooms, we really saw where if you take a development project and you increase access to water, but you do it so that it builds peace around that infrastructure, you very easily married development and peace building. And I think the CCF, the modifier that USAID uses, is also an excellent mechanism for addressing humanitarian crises in development programming.
Kofi?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to add one word on that. I don't want to come back again what you are saying. What we are observing in the field is the humanitarian actors and donors, they are come like a superstar. Yes, we are the humanitarians. The development actors, sometimes you feel that they are very slow because they want all the process, file signed before. And then even if sometimes you forget the peace one, I don't know, even if in this room you have the peace actors and all, I'm not sure that they are more than 5%. So we forget them. They are the whole fan of the house. And this example that we face we have in 2015 in Mali, for example, where we start the situation. We have in the same donors, we have the development donors that they have funds. But regarding the change of the situation, these funds, they succeed to discuss with the humanitarians to increase the fund to be able to quickly respond. We need to have that. They don't have a mechanism between the humanitarian actors and the development. We need to have. Now we have some, I don't know, I have to mention them. Even if they are developing a development project, they put one line of humanitarians in this project. So as soon as we have the context change, they can easily react. So we need to talk. We need to talk and put together our effort to be able to respond.
Yeah, just to add to what Kofi and Katrina said, I think it's something that is achievable once we have a strong strategy and a flexible funding mechanism, whereby a humanitarian actor, where developing a project can include some component of peace and development. And if at the course of implementation, the narrative change, you can easily switch to either implement peace or development project. So once we have a flexible funding mechanism, I think it's something that is achievable.
Thank you for that. With that, want to thank the panelists again for this conversation. Let's give them a round of applause. And want to thank everybody for your participation in today's discussion. All right, thank you.